Varrio Hawaiian Gardens. A legacy of violence, racial hatred, and criminal enterprise from La Emea pioneers to the murder of Deputy Jerry Ortiz. The Varrio Hawaiian Gardens VHG, also known as the Hawaiian Gardens Gang or Varrio Hate Gang, is one of the most infamous Mexican-American street gangs in Los Angeles County. Rooted in the small city of Hawaiian Gardens, this gang has a long history of violence, racial hatred, and organized crime. With origins dating back to the 1940s and over 2,000 active members at its peak, VHG has left an indelible mark on its community and beyond. Origins and evolution. Hawaiian Gardens, the smallest city in Los Angeles County, is just 1 square mile and has a population of approximately 14,000 residents. The city's name originates from a 1920s refreshment stand decorated with tropical themes. By the 1940s and 1950s, VHG emerged as a loosely organized neighborhood clique that eventually became a powerful gang claiming dominance over the entire city. Their stronghold lies in southern Hawaiian Gardens, particularly along Carson Street between 219th and 226th Streets. The gang's identity is closely tied to its cliques, such as the Malditas MDTS and Laquitos LQTS, which translates to Little Crazy Ones. They adopted Punchy, the Hawaiian Punch cartoon character, as their mascot. Over time, VHG expanded its influence through violence and criminal enterprise. Territorial dominance and rivalries. VHG claims territorial control over all Hawaiian Gardens but is particularly entrenched in its southern neighborhoods. The gang has engaged in violent rivalries with neighboring Latino gangs such as Artesia 13, Chivas 13 from Artesia, and Norwalk 13 from Norwalk. Additionally, VHG adopted the label Crip Killer CK following the murder of a Laquitos clique member by Crips in 1989. This event solidified their anti-blackdensa stance during that era. The pioneers of La Emea, Luis Huero Buff Flores and Alejandro Hondo Lechuga, prominent figures in the gang's early history. The story of the Mexican Mafia, or La Emea, is one of ambition, violence, and a vision to unite rival gangs into one powerful organization. Founded in the late 1950s, La Emea emerged as a dominant force in the California prison system. At the center of this tale are 2 pivotal figures, Luis Huero Buff Flores and Alejandro Hondo Lechuga, both prominent Varrio Hawaiian Gardens gang members. Together, they laid the groundwork for one of the most notorious prison gangs in U.S. history. Luis Huero Buff Flores, the catalyst. Born on August 16, 1940, in Los Angeles County, Luis Flores' life of crime began early, leading to his first arrest at age 14. By 1957, Flores was at the Dual Vocational Institution DVI, a California Youth Authority facility. It was here that Flores, a member of the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens gang, conceived his radical vision of uniting rival Hispanic street gangs under a single banner. Flores' plan sought to end the violent rivalries between gangs like White Fence, Clanton 14, Barrio Nuevo Estrada, Hawaiian Gardens, and Primera Flats. His goal was survival and dominance within the prison system. Under Flores' guidance, La Emea became a gang of gangs that controlled the black market economy inside prisons while protecting Hispanic inmates. Flores established La Emea's core principles, including the infamous blood oath. Membership was for life, and leaving could only happen through death. The gang's rigorous rules prohibited betrayal, cowardice, theft, or harm against fellow members. With Flores' charisma and vision, the Mexican Mafia grew in influence. In 1958, La Emea carried out its first organized murder at DVI inmate Luis G. Martinez was fatally stabbed, marking the gang's entry into violence as a tool for dominance. Though Flores denied direct involvement, his role in the Mexican Mafia's rise was undeniable. His strategic thinking and ability to rally violent personalities set the stage for La Emea's expansion into adult prisons. Flores' criminal activities continued after his release from the Youth Authority. In 1961, he entered San Quentin State Prison, where La Emea's power solidified. Flores' cunning legal tactics and his establishment of heroin pipelines between Mexico and Los Angeles further strengthened La Emea's position. After serving 5 years in prison for drug-related charges, he passed away from alcohol poisoning in 1991. Alejandro Hondo Lechuga, the enforcer. Born just a month before Flores, on July 8, 1940, Alejandro Zaragoza Lechuga grew up in Los Angeles, embracing a chaotic lifestyle. Known as Alejandro Hondo Lechuga, he shared a close bond with Flores, his homeboy from the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens gang. their lives intertwined as they navigated the perils of gang life. In 1956, Hondo and Warro Buff were arrested for disturbances in Newport Beach. Their recklessness soon landed Hondo in DVI, where he reconnected with Flores. It was here that the foundation of La Mea was laid. Hondo became instrumental in executing Flores' vision, participating in violent acts that established La Mea's reputation. In 1960, Hondo's criminal career escalated. After being convicted of marijuana possession, he was sent to Soledad prison. There, he endured racial tensions and frequent violence, which only hardened his resolve. In San Quentin, Hondo's reputation grew when he participated in attacks that solidified La Mea's dominance, including the murder of Leotis White in 1964, a black inmate who had previously attacked him. Hondo's fearlessness and loyalty to La Mea were unwavering. Even after escaping from Soledad prison in 1969 and fleeing to Mexico under the alias Raul Luga, he continued supporting La Mea's operations. By the early 1970s, he and Warro Buff had established heroin pipelines that bolstered the gang's influence. Later in life, Hondo transitioned into semi-retirement, managing a Mexican restaurant in Huntington Beach. Despite this, his legacy as a founding member and trusted advisor to active Mexican Mafia leaders remained intact until his death on March 7, 2014, at the age of 73. A lasting legacy. The combined efforts of Luis Warro Buff Flores and Alejandro Hondo Lechuga laid the foundation for La Mea's rise as a powerful criminal organization. From their early days in the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens gang to the violent events at DVI and San Quentin, their vision of unity and dominance transformed the Mexican Mafia into an enduring force within and beyond prison walls. While Flores and Lechuga each followed their own paths, their contributions to La Mea's legacy remain inseparable. Their lives serve as a testament to the allure of power and the high cost of walking the path of organized crime. For all their influence, their stories also warn of the perilous journey and fleeting rewards of a life defined by violence and lawlessness. Racial hatred and hate crimes. VHG's notoriety extends beyond gang rivalries to racially motivated violence. Known as a hate gang, VHG waged campaigns of intimidation and violence against African American residents throughout the 1980s and 1990s. These actions mirrored similar efforts by other Latino gangs like Azusa 13 and Compton Barrio 155. Notable acts of violence and hate crimes committed by VHG. The history of the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens VHG gang is marred by numerous acts of violence, particularly racially motivated crimes. Below is an overview of some of the most notable incidents. Notable acts of violence. 1993. Firebombing of Cynthia Hayes' home. VHG members threw a Molotov cocktail into the home of Cynthia Hayes, an African-American resident, while her children were inside. Although Hayes managed to save her family, the attack was accompanied by racial slurs spray painted on her property, underscoring its hateful intent. 1996. Murder of Martin Hammonds. Rudy Villa Jr., a VHG member, fatally shot Martin Hammonds, a 27-year-old African-American and former football star. This heinous act of violence resulted in Villa receiving a 65-year-to-life prison sentence. 1997. Killing of Demario Young. Demario Young was shot shortly after exiting his van. Alberto Badger Martinez, a known VHG affiliate, was later arrested for his involvement in the murder. 1999. Beating death of Virgil Henry III. Virgil Henry III, a young African-American man, was chased by a mob of VHG members who shouted racial slurs before viciously beating him to death with baseball bats near Carson Street. This brutal attack involved both men and women, highlighting the widespread participation within the gang. 2005. Murder of Deputy Jerry Ortiz. The murder of Deputy Jerry Ortiz by VHG member Jose Orozco became a significant event in the gang's violent history. Ortiz, who had been actively investigating gang-related crimes, was shot and killed in an ambush orchestrated by Orozco. The gang's adoption of terms like NK, N-killer further underscores their deep-seated racial animosity.
Everybody, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate why you're here. We all understand that this was, again, a 3.5-year investigation that has culminated to today's day.
Single beat anyone's advertised price a year mattress is free!
FBI, warrant, open the door. Okay. You in the doorway, slowly down your knees, hands on the back of your head.
George, Sam 11.
You standing in the doorway.
West Coast 4, location 11,
Back your way.
primary Sam 17, West Coast 4, 1015 with the primary and 2 others.
Alright, come back.
Anybody else in the house?
Hands on top of your head, turn away from the sound of my voice. Slowly back towards the door. Slowly, keep your back towards me. Ma'am, stay where you are. Turn away from the sound of my voice. Turn away.
I need to go to some, just quickly identifying information and stuff like that. I'm not going to ask you anything about, what's going on. This is just kind of like just your name. What's your last name?
They found meth everywhere. Baggage all over there. Everyone was being punks, so they hooked everybody up and they're bringing them all back here. So we do have our main target in custody.
HRT Talk from Charlie 03. Can you report the status of the findings from that 17402?
SWAT, FBI SWAT, all three. This one they had to roll to a second one, and they got a consent to search. The parents signed it. They had Spanish speakers there. And it was the garage that we tried to get into. We had calls on the wire for a long time saying that the garage at this house, they had a bunch of Mexican Mafia paraphernalia. All kinds of
I got that
So I'm trying another hand. Yeah, and you gotta sit.
Operation Knockout. Unveiling the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens gang and racial violence in Southern California. In one of the largest gang cases in U.S. history, authorities orchestrated Operation Knockout, a sweeping multi-agency effort that dismantled the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens gang VHG. The operation not only exposed decades of racially motivated violence and organized crime but also disrupted gang activities across Southern California, revealing the intricate ties between local gangs and the Mexican Mafia. This landmark investigation highlights the pervasive influence of racial hostility within gang culture and law enforcement's resilience in restoring community safety. The tragic loss of Deputy Jerry Ortiz, a hero's legacy and the fight against gang violence. The life and career of Deputy Jerry Ortiz are a testament to the courage and dedication required to confront violence and protect communities. As a seasoned member of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department LASD, Ortiz devoted himself to improving the lives of those in Hawaiian Gardens, a community plagued by gang violence. His story, intertwined with the loss of his brother-in-law, Corrections Officer Manuel Gonzalez Jr., underscores the sacrifices made by law enforcement officers in the face of persistent threats. The murder of Deputy Jerry Ortiz. On June 24, 2005, Deputy Jerry Ortiz paid the ultimate price while carrying out his mission to protect and serve. A gang investigator with the LASD's Operation Safe Streets OSS unit, Ortiz was well acquainted with the dangerous dynamics of Hawaiian Gardens, home to the infamous Varrio Hawaiian Gardens VHG gang. Earlier that month, gang member Jose Luis Orozco, also known as Seppi, had been identified as the perpetrator of a racially motivated shooting. Orozco was a hardened criminal with tattoos of devil horns on his forehead, symbolizing his alignment with the gang's violent culture. When Deputy Ortiz spotted him in the community on June 24, a tragic sequence of events unfolded. Orozco fled to an apartment complex on East 223rd Street, an area long associated with gang activity. Ortiz, well versed in the layout of the complex, pursued him. As Ortiz approached an open apartment door, Orozco ambushed him, shooting him at close range. The fatal attack ended Ortiz's life instantly, leaving behind his wife, Chela, and 2 young sons. The community mourned the loss of Ortiz, a devoted family man, churchgoer, and committed public servant. His death sent shockwaves through law enforcement, highlighting the grave dangers officers face when confronting gang violence. A family's tragic connection to violence. Just 6 months before Ortiz's murder, his brother-in-law, Corrections Officer Manuel Oriza Gonzalez Jr., was fatally stabbed by an inmate at the California Institution for Men in Chino, California. Gonzalez, a 17-year veteran of the California Department of Corrections, was known for his commitment to his work and his role as a husband and father of 6. Gonzalez was killed by a gang member who exploited his position of trust to carry out the attack, using a shank to inflict the fatal wounds. His loss deeply affected his family and underscored the risks corrections officers face in managing violent criminals. The deaths of both Gonzalez and Ortiz within half a year of each other illustrate the pervasive impact of gang violence on families and communities, even extending to those charged with maintaining law and order. Varrio Hawaiian Gardens Gang. A legacy of violence and hatred. The VHG Gang, also known as the Hate Gang, has a notorious history of criminal activities, racial violence, and allegiance to the Mexican Mafia. Known for their racial hatred, the gang engaged in systematic attacks against African American individuals in the community. Their violent agenda marked Hawaiian Gardens as a battleground of intimidation and crime. Ortiz, who worked tirelessly to dismantle this gang's grip on the community, was a clear target because of his efforts. His murder exemplified the gang's brutal tactics to silence opposition and maintain their reign of fear. Jose Luis Orozco, the assailant. Jose Luis Sepi Orozco represented the ruthless culture of VHG at the time of Ortiz's murder. He was 28 years old and heavily tattooed with gang insignia, including a cartoonish Hawaiian punch character, devil horns, and symbols of allegiance to the Mexican Mafia. Orozco had an extensive criminal record, including carjacking, burglary, drug distribution, and violent assaults. Before murdering Deputy Ortiz, Orozco had committed a racially motivated shooting, further exemplifying his disregard for human life and law enforcement. His apprehension became a priority after Ortiz's death, ensuring justice for the deputy's family and community. The gang's mockery of a hero's death. Following Ortiz's death, the gang's reaction was appallingly defiant. Hawaiian Gardens graffiti mocked his murder with messages such as FK the Cops 187, FK Pigs 187, and Rest in Piz Ortiz. Beyond graffiti, VHG members wrote a disturbing rap song celebrating the killing, with lyrics glorifying violence against law enforcement. Another cop gone, is all I'm hearing, another cop gone. It's like a MF countdown, armed and dangerous. We just go motherfucking balls out. Just show that we roll and how the Southeast rides, committing all these motherfucking crimes, all at one time. Such actions highlighted the gang's deep-seated culture of violence and animosity toward authority. Operation Knockout. The initial strike. The murder of Deputy Jerry Ortiz prompted a massive law enforcement response, culminating in Operation Knockout, one of the most extensive anti-gang initiatives in the history of Hawaiian Gardens. This landmark operation commenced in May 2009, with over 1,400 officers conducting synchronized raids that resulted in 147 defendants being charged through 5 major federal indictments. United States vs. Flores. A 57-defendant RICO case uncovering murders, racketeering, and racially motivated attacks. United States vs. Henley. A narcotics conspiracy case centered on crack cocaine distribution. United States vs. Barajas. A superseding indictment addressing drug traffickers tied to Mexican cartel networks. United States vs. Sotelo. A methamphetamine trafficking conspiracy involving 21 individuals. United States vs. Ramirez. Focused on dismantling a local narcotics distribution ring. Among those indicted were George Manuel Boxer Flores, a high-ranking gang leader and Mexican Mafia associate. Boxer orchestrated gang operations and extorted local drug trafficking networks. His criminal empire came to an end with a 30-year federal prison sentence. In addition to dismantling key gang leadership, the operation resulted in the seizure of 88 firearms and significant quantities of illegal drugs, marking a major victory in the fight against organized crime in Hawaiian Gardens. Broad law enforcement collaboration. Operation Knockout's success was fueled by unprecedented cooperation among law enforcement agencies. Spearheaded by the Los Angeles High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area HIDTA Southern California Drug Task Force, this Herculean effort included participation from federal, state, and local agencies. Among the collaborators were the DEA, FBI, ATF, ICE, IRS Criminal Investigation, and various local police departments from Los Angeles, Downey, Hawthorne, Buena Park, and beyond. Specialized groups like PROAC, the California Highway Patrol CHP, and multiple narcotics task forces further bolstered the operation. This comprehensive coordination targeted not only the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens VHG gang but extended to other gangs such as East Side Paramount, 18th Street, Mortontown Stoners, Nazi Lowriders, Santanas, Carmelas, Barrio Grape Street Watts, and Compton T Flats. The outcomes were monumental. nearly 200 indictments, the removal of approximately 300 gang members from the streets, and significant seizures of firearms and drugs. John A. Torres, ATF special agent in charge, highlighted the impact of the operation, stating, "We took violent criminals off the streets and seized their tools of terror, firearms and drugs." The Mexican Mafia connection. VHG's racial hostility did not operate in isolation. The Mexican Mafia, a notorious prison gang, directed VHG's campaign of ethnic cleansing to dominate neighborhoods and eliminate African American residents. Prosecutors noted similar patterns in other Latino gangs like Florencia 13 and the Avenues, revealing a broader effort to assert territorial control through racially motivated violence. Cases reflecting Mexican Mafia influence. Cheryl Green 2006. A 14-year-old African-American girl was murdered by Latino gang members in Harbor Gateway under Mexican Mafia orders. Florencia 13 2005. Implicated in over 20 racially motivated homicides. The Avenues 2007. Members convicted of racially motivated murders in Highland Park. This expansion underscored the systemic nature of gang violence in the region and the need for a unified, aggressive law enforcement response. Justice and legacy. Jose Luis Orozco was eventually captured and convicted for Deputy Ortiz's murder. Today, he resides on death row at San Quentin State Prison, while the scars left by his heinous act linger within the community and law enforcement circles. The legacy of Deputy Ortiz. Despite the success of Operation Knockout, the loss of Deputy Ortiz remains a grim reminder of the dangers law enforcement faces daily. His sacrifice has inspired ongoing efforts to dismantle violent gangs and protect communities, keeping his memory alive as a beacon of hope and justice.
All right, it's an attempt to deliver a knockout blow to LA gangs.
Doing something like this is really the only way that we can have a major impact upon it.
And we'll take you along the largest gang takedown in the nation's history, and we'll tell you about the one man who inspired the operation.
In the second phase of what federal prosecutors call the largest gang takedown in the nation's history, federal and local cops were back on the streets early today busting associates of the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens gang. Chris Blatchford was along for the ride.
Silhouetted in the early morning darkness, deputies and federal agents served 24 warrants, arresting 20 suspects accused in connection with a drug pipeline that leads to the Varrio Hawaiian Gardens gang. Assistant U.S. Attorney Mike Lowe.
If you were a drug dealer in Hawaiian Gardens, you had to pay tax to the Hawaiian Gardens gang, and then a portion of that tax, which is essentially extortion, is passed on to the Mexican Mafia.
These arrests are part of a federal racketeering case called Operation Knockout. The main indictment, unsealed in May, resulted in the roundup of more than 100 Hawaiian Gardens gang members and associates. The 4-year-long investigation was launched by the 2005 murder of Sheriff's Deputy Jerry Ortiz by this Hawaiian Gardens gang member. Those arrested Wednesday are mostly drug dealers and associates of the gang.
They've controlled the flow of drugs in that community. They basically run crime in Hawaiian Gardens.
The principal indictment says that includes murder, attempted murder, weapons trafficking, burglary, kidnapping, and witness intimidation. Nearly a dozen confiscated weapons, handguns, shotguns, and rifles, are now added to an arsenal of more than 100 guns taken off the streets in May.
Prosecutor Lowe says people need to understand that this is a violent, dangerous, criminal organization. And that's why law enforcement is doing what it's doing here. In Hawaiian Gardens, Chris Blatchford, Fox 11 News.
Operation Knockout, combined with the capture and conviction of gang leaders, marked a significant milestone in the broader battle against organized crime. Yet the challenges persist as the fight against gangs like Hawaiian Gardens continues to demand resilience, coordination, and courage. The attempted murder of Saunoa Joseph Laumua and crimes linked to the Hawaiian Gardens gang. The shooting of Saunoa Joseph Laumua. On the evening of January 13, 2008, around 8 p.m., Saunoa Joseph Laumua, a wheelchair-bound man, was the victim of a ruthless shooting while heading to a Baskin-Robbins in Cerritos. As Laumua wheeled himself along Ely Avenue, a green van approached him. The men inside asked, "Where are you from?" Attempting to avoid conflict, Laumua responded, "I'm from nowhere." However, the men persisted, accusing him, "Yeah, you're Sporty from Artesia." Laumua clarified, "I'm in a wheelchair. I don't bang anymore." Despite this, the driver ordered the passenger to shoot Laumua and finish him. The van sped off as concerned neighbors shouted warnings and begged the attackers to leave Laumua alone, given his clear disability. When authorities arrived, they found Laumua lying on the sidewalk, bleeding and in agony. He had been shot under the right armpit, with the bullet lodging in his back. Laumua was rushed to the hospital, where he spent nearly 2.5 weeks recovering. Nearby, a witness, identified as JV, had been sitting in a parked car and heard 3 gunshots. He saw a dark green minivan, either a Dodge Grand Caravan or Plymouth Voyager, speeding away. JV memorized part of the license plate, 5PG. At trial, JV testified that Miguel Angel Gomez's vehicle matched the van from the shooting. Investigators recovered 4 shell casings and 2 bullet fragments near where Laumua fell. The robbery of DA&MB just days later, on January 17, 2008, at 11:25 p.m., another crime occurred. DA&MB were walking home from work when a dark green van pulled up. 2 men exited the vehicle. MB escaped, but DA was grabbed and threatened. A gun was pressed to DA's temple as he was told, "Give me whatever you have, or we'll shoot you." Terrified, DA handed over his wallet and phone. The driver shouted to his accomplices, "Hurry up, let's go." Before fleeing, DA memorized the license plate 5 Papua New Guinean Kines 698. Just hours later, at 1:30 a.m., deputies located the van in Hawaiian Gardens. Miguel Angel Gomez, the driver, attempted to flee but was caught and subdued by a K-9 unit. A search of the van uncovered a loaded firearm with additional magazines, black gloves, CDs marked with HG and MDTS, and a digital scale. Forensics confirmed that the bullet fragments from Laumua's shooting were fired from the weapon in Gomez's van. DNA evidence further linked Gomez to the firearm. The role of Andrew Duran. On February 5, 2008, Andrew Duran, a minor, was arrested for his involvement in the robbery and an unrelated attempted murder. Though Duran pled no contest and was sentenced to 9 years as an adult, his recorded interview provided key insights. Duran revealed that Gomez had picked him up alongside another man, Robbie, with the intent to find something. Upon encountering DA&MB, Gomez handed Robbie a gun and instructed him to get him. Despite his admissions during the interview, Duran denied involvement at trial, likely out of fear. Detectives testified that the gang's strict no-snitching code made cooperation dangerous. The Hawaiian Gardens Gang. Detective Esteban Solis, a gang expert, described the Hawaiian Gardens Gang, which originated in the late 1950s. Operating primarily in the city of Hawaiian Gardens, the gang has documented over 1,200 members. Gang symbols include palm trees and the Hawaiian punch character, punchy, letters H and G, graffiti such as VHG, VHGR, and 13. The gang engages in criminal activities like robberies, narcotic sales, assaults, and vehicle burglaries. Initiated members often adopt unique nicknames or monikers. Notable members include Jesus Castillo, aka Chewy, is recognized by tattoos like HG on his hands and VHGR on his body. Roberto Estrada, aka Bones and Mono, bears tattoos of Hawaiian Garden, Punchy, and other gang-related imagery. Final outcome: Miguel Angel Gomez was convicted of attempted murder and robbery, receiving a sentence of 62 years to life. His appeal was denied, upholding the judgment against him. This tragic series of events underscores the devastating impact of gang culture on both its members and innocent victims. From the merciless attack on a disabled man to armed robberies, the Hawaiian Gardens gang's actions remain a sobering reminder of the destructive consequences of street violence. Legacy of violence. Despite significant law enforcement efforts to dismantle their operations, Varrio Hawaiian Gardens remains a symbol of entrenched gang culture in southeast Los Angeles County. Their history is marked by racial hatred, violent rivalries, and organized crime that have devastated countless lives. While law enforcement crackdowns like Operation Knockout have weakened their grip on Hawaiian Gardens, the scars left by their actions continue to haunt victims and residents alike. Conclusion: the story of Varrio Hawaiian Gardens is one of unchecked violence fueled by racial hatred and criminal enterprise. From hate crimes targeting African Americans to brutal rivalries with neighboring gangs, their legacy serves as both a cautionary tale and a call to action for communities grappling with similar issues. Yet amidst this dark history lies hope. Hope that sustained efforts from law enforcement and community leaders can ultimately overcome such destructive forces.
Puro Varrio Hawaiian Gardens rifas, smoke Smoking on the goodest griffa. Te meto una paliza, put your ass in a camisa. Right around the southeast side. Committed 187s to 11s. Watch where you stepping with my Smith & Wesson.